So, bottom left hand target. Safety's off. Hi, I'm Mark and welcome to the GunLocker, and welcome to part 2 of this two-part review. And part 2 is all about performance, you know, how this rifle actually shoots, whether it's accurate or not. So what you're about to see is basically me shooting outside at 30 meters, running a few tests, and then afterwards I'll have a chat with you about my thoughts on how this rifle has performed. Basically, sum it up. Hi guys, so outside, beautiful afternoon. First chance I've had of doing this test because it's been raining for over a week now, actually, consistently raining, and it's absolutely beautiful. There's no wind, so I couldn't ask for better conditions to do a test. Now, obviously got the Reximex Ixia at .22 caliber, and it's sub 12 foot-pound. So it's restricted because it's the UK market. And what I want to do, because it has so many adjustments to it, I want to see whether those adjustments actually make a difference, or are we basically paying for something that, you know, we don't really need to have. The target is set at 30 meters, and I'm going to be shooting mainly at the paper target, and on that paper target we have 5 smaller targets. And I'm going to do a pellet test first off, so I want to see which is the best pellet for this rifle. I'm going to be shooting at the top left target first, then the top right, then the bottom right, then the bottom left. And I'm going to have 12 shots at each. And I'm going to start off with the RWS Superdomes. Cheap and cheerful pellet. And basically, to load the Ixia, rather than coming in from the right hand side, which is what you do with most PCPs, you come in from the left hand side, and the mag, which is similar to most Turkish made rifles now, similar to the Crown magazine, it's a rotary mag, it's 12 shot, that feeds in from the left hand side. Now in the breech there's a groove, and you can see a raised slider on the back of the mag. That's to align with the groove. So we cock the rifle, we feed it in from the left hand side, close the breech, so close the probe, and we're going to go top left hand target, so 12 shots. And this is all about grouping. I'm not particularly bothered about it hitting the cross, I just want to see which gives me the best group, and then I'll use that pellet for the accuracy test. So safety off. That did not sound right. Okay. We're going to have to ignore that first shot because that had the transfer port down to its lowest setting, so I've upped that now so everything is on maximum. Let's try that again. It's the top left hand target. And it would help if I cocked the rifle. There we go. Right, we're out. So I can safely say that this rifle does not like the RWS Superdomes. They're out. Next, Air Arms Diablo Fields. Top right hand target. Right, I'm out. Okay, from there I can see that that was a much better group. Still not particularly happy with it. Right, next one we've got the Bisley Long Range Gold. Let's see how these perform. So we're going to go bottom right hand target for these. Right, I'm out. Reserve judgment on that one. And then finally we've got the Diablo match, Jumbo Diablos from JSB. We'll see how these perform. Right, bottom left hand target. Right, I'm out. Okay. Okay, none of them are great. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the Bisley, and before I do the accuracy test, I just want to make a slight adjustment on my zeroing, because I've noticed that it's running off a little bit. So I'm going to use a center target for this, and I'm just going to feed in a few pellets so I can make my adjustment. I'm going to go one click up and one click to the right. And I'll see how that performs, and I'm just going to use the center target to do that. So the only thing with these mags, they take a little bit of time to load, but obviously once you've got them, you have 12 shots to hand. Right, okay, so that's in. Let me cock that. I'm going to go one click up, lock that off, and I'm going to go one click to the right. That's two, and I'm going to lock that off. Right, so center target, just a few pellets in there just to make sure that I'm zeroed in. Shooting a little bit high, let me just try that again. Yeah, I'm going to revert that setting. I'm going to go down one click. Right, just quickly try these. Yeah, okay. Happy with that. Right. Okay. So, on with the accuracy test. Okay, so I've decided to go with the Bisley Long Range Gold pellets, 5.5mm, and it's quite good actually that the rifle likes these, because they're a mid-range pellet with regards to price. So a tin of 500s coming in at £13.99 as opposed to £18 for the JSB match Diablo Exacts. So yeah, that's a pleasant surprise. Now the idea with the accuracy test is, on the A4 piece of paper there are 5 small targets. Now I'm going to put a pellet in each of the corner targets, so bottom left, bottom right, top left, and I'm going to measure the distance from the centre of the cross to the centre of impact, and they will give me some figures to put into my formula. And then the centre target, I'm going to put a group of 5 pellets in there, and I'm going to measure the overall distance and the diameter of the group, again centre to centre on the pellets, and feed that information into the formula, and hopefully that will help me gain a figure for the accuracy rating out of 5 stars. So, bottom left hand target. safety's off. Bottom right hand target. Top right hand target. Top left hand target. Right, now for the group in the centre target. There's one. Two. Three. Four. Five. So there were 2 out of that 5 that I'm really not happy with. I could see the pellet just dropping and pulling to the right hand side. There you go. And what I will say is that before I carried out this test, I've had the barrel out, I've cleaned it, because it was absolutely filthy. It was full of manufacturer grease in there, obviously protecting the barrel so it doesn't rust, and it would need to be leaded in. But it's got, if you look at the rifling, it's got a very, they're not pronounced lands and grooves. There's a twist to it, but it's not pronounced, so it's almost smooth. But anyway, I'll talk about that more in the build quality. So I've got a few shots left. I'm just going to go onto the spinners just to empty this mag out. Let's see. Let's go for the right hand, far right. That's a hit. The next one in. That's a hit. And let's see if I can release that one by hitting the top target. Okay, and that should be me out. And I am. So there's one more test that I want to do, and that's to do with the hammer adjustment and the transfer port adjustment. I just want to see whether these actually make any difference. Okay guys, on with the last test of the day. Loaded up again using Busy long range golds. The idea is, I'm not sure if you can see that, there's a hammer spring adjuster here on the end and it's got 10 settings, so I'm going to take 10 shots. I'm going to aim at the centre target and I'm going to see whether there's a drop in elevation as to whether that hammer spring actually does anything. And then after that, that'll leave me with 2 shots, and I'm going to mess about with the transfer port adjustment, which you can see here. There's a little adjustment knob on the left hand side of the butt. I'm going to put that on half setting and then on its lowest setting just to see what the drop in elevation is. But initially that's on max, so it's going to stay there, and we're just going to play around with a hammer spring adjustment. So let's see what happens. So this is aiming at the centre target, and all I'm not so worried, I'm not bothered so much about the windage left and right. I am worried about elevation. Okay, so now I'm going to drop that one. Same point of aim. hardly any difference there at all. Same point of aim. Again in the same spot. Going back down one. No difference on elevation, but it is swinging to the right a little bit. Again in the same place. That dropped quite a bit. That was a marked difference between that and the others, and you could hear the drop in pressure. That's actually picked up again. Odd. Oh, went 2 then. Back to the other side. Again, there's a drop there. And that's the last setting now. So we're on the weakest setting for the hammer spring. Yeah. Okay. So that's a hammer spring test done. I don't see any benefit in that at all, to be honest. I'm going to crank that back up, and now I'm going to go half on the transfer port adjustment. And this is the amount of air that actually is allowed to go up the barrel. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for the top right hand target and just see how much of a drop there is from the cross. Okay, so that's about 26-27 mil down, so 1 1/8 thereabouts. And now we're on minimum. So the last shot, and this is going to be top left hand target. Yeah, so that's about 2.5 inches low from point of aim. So the transfer port adjustment certainly does reduce the power, and we know that because of the chrono tests. The hammer spring adjustment, it's, in all honesty, it's too irregular to make any real difference. If I was using this gun on a day-to-day basis, everything would be set at max. Simple as that. So what you've just watched is my first attempt at getting some results. I have tried several attempts to improve the scores because, in all honesty, I wasn't happy with the outcome. And it's one of the reasons why it's taken me a bit of time to get part 2 out. It's really quite frustrating. You know, you see guys out there claiming to shoot groups under a 5-penny piece at 40 meters using this rifle, and if I can't do that, summit's up, you know. Generally speaking, I'm very confident in my shooting, and it's not often that I feel that I'm not performing when I'm, you know, when I've got a rifle in my shoulder. So I thought, no, let's give this a fair crack of the whip. And I waited for a clear spell, and what I did was I actually locked this into a sled, so it was fixed, and I eliminated human error. Now, the results I'm not even going to bother showing you, because in all honesty they were no better than what you've just seen. And in my mind it just goes to show that maybe Reximex and me don't fit. You know, it might work for some, they might shoot very well with it, but for me, the Reximex as a brand, I am beginning to struggle with. So I've got issues with this rifle, and I've got issues with the MIF. And I've mentioned that I've actually created a review on the MIF, but that hasn't been published because I was asked not to, as that was going to be sent to the manufacturer. What can I say? Well, with regards to the 5-star rating, overall for performance I've given it 3.4 out of 5 stars. It scored well in certain categories such as handling and the trigger. Handling it scored 3.8 and the trigger it scored 3.8. With regards to the handling, the weight is nice and the balance itself is good, being that it's, you know, in line with the post of the trigger, so right in the centre of the rifle. What lets it down is the positioning of this Picatinny rail. It's too short and it's set too far back, and that's why in the footage you saw me resting the rifle on a bench rest, and it was, you know, basically resting on the bottle. Now that caused problems, because when you go to lockdown, when you go to secure that rifle into your shoulder and you want some purchase on it to make sure that you've got a stable upper frame, you push down onto the rest, and you do that to make sure that the gun doesn't move. Well, that's how I shoot. Now, because this bottle has some movement in its fixing to the chassis, there's a bit of upward movement. You know, you put the gun to your shoulder, you rest it on the bench rest, you press into it to make sure it's locked, and there's this slight upward movement. Now, because this bottle is resting on against the shroud, that upward movement transfers to the shroud, which transfers to the barrel, obviously, and it affects accuracy. And as hard as I tried to keep myself uniform in my stance, in the way that I was gripping the rifle, how I locked off, there's always going to be some variation, there's some movement, and that's what I believe was throwing off my accuracy. There's a little bit too much flex in this. It's not as solid as I'd like it to be. That added to the fact that you know, when you're talking about the things of the barrels and the lands and the grooves, the way it's actually been rifled, that again affects accuracy. But no, going back to handling, you know, I scored it 3.8 out of 5 stars. Not a bad score. It's okay. The weight I like, you know, without the bipod, if you were shooting offhand, yeah, it's a nice comfortable rifle to carry around. This needs to change. This needs to either be longer or forget about it. There's no point. But if there's no point to having, you know, if they're not going to fit a Picatinny rail down here, then the bottle itself, the way it's been fixed to the chassis, has to be much more rigid. Okay, with regards to loading, so I scored the rifle 3.3 out of 5 stars for loading. One, because, you know me, I've said this before, I don't like the rotary magazines. I don't believe they index the pellets properly. I mean, consistently properly. So sometimes it goes in, and you might have noticed on the footage there was a couple of times where I felt that resistance as I was closing the bolt. Yeah, it just, you know then that the pellets are going to fly. Going back to that time, you know, recently, where I put the rifle in the sled, I actually used a single shot tray in order to kind of get away from the issues with the rotary magazines. But in all honesty, it made no real difference. So what can I say? Maybe it's just literally, maybe it's just me not connecting to the rifle. I don't know. The trigger, yeah, that scored 3.8 out of 5 stars, as I said. And it's done that because, in all honesty, straight out of the box, it feels okay. It's quite predictable. There is some movement, first stage movement. It comes to a stop, and then, you know, that next little gentle squeeze, you know it's going to go. You know it's going to fire. So I really haven't got much in the way of issues with it. It is adjustable, but the thing is, you can't just get to the adjustment screws without taking bits and pieces apart, and that's a little bit annoying. Yeah, so 3.8 out of 5 stars. Now accuracy, this is where it's laying itself down, so score of 3.3 out of 5. It's okay. It's just a shame it could be a lot better. You know, I think, in all honesty, if Reximex spent more time on the barrel, you know, making sure that that was accurate, on securing the bottle so there was no slight upward movement, they may not have to worry about all of this lot at the back, which, in my opinion, sub 12 foot-pound really is surplus to requirements. Spend the money up here, not down here. And yeah, one of the reasons, I mean, look, for the single shot results, it was 4 out of 5. The group results, 3.5 out of 5. What let it down was the fact that it is pellet fussy. You know that, you've seen it. Ended up using the Bisley long range golds in this test, but funnily enough, when I took the rifle out the other day and there was a considerable drop in temperature, it actually preferred the JSBs. So temperature has a bearing as well, or I assume it has a bearing. You never quite know. Now, with regards to power adjustment, so the test that I did for the hammer spring, and also for the transfer port adjustment, again, I probably should have shown you this last bit of footage, but I didn't want the video to extend way past the hour again. I want to try and keep this quite concise. But what can I say? The hammer spring adjustment is completely irregular. It just, you know, there's no even kind of reduction in force on that spring, so you don't get an even drop on the pellet when you're taking it. In fact, the first 3 or 4 adjustments that I made no difference. Then it dropped quite a bit. Then at some point it jumped back up again. It was just erratic, absolutely erratic, and in my mind a complete and utter waste of time. The transfer port adjustment, well, you know, it's got 5 settings marked on the side of the rifle. The first 2 are basically the same. The middle one, which you'd expect to be somewhere in the region of 8.8 foot-pound of energy, actually is at 10.6 foot-pound of energy, so it's not halfway down the scale at all, and minimum is at I think 6.5 foot-pounds, thereabouts. So really the first 2 markings are the same. The third, yeah, there's a drop of about 1 inch and a quarter off the top of my head, something like that, 1 inch and 1/8, and then it's more than 2.5 inch drop when you go to the minimum power. Would I mess around with these if I'm out shooting? No, I wouldn't. And like I've already said on the footage, I would keep it set at max. So with regards to power adjustment, it scored low in my mind. You know, I've only given it 2 out of 5 stars because there's just no point to having it. I've seen rifles without all of this lot, I've reviewed them, and they've performed much better. You know, the high cap is a classic example of that. And let's see. So with regards to shot count, now, you know, I had a test range of 220 bar down to 160 bar, and I got 77 shots out of that. So that's actually pretty good, and because of that, you know, I've given it a score of 4 out of 5. There's a lot of air in here, you know, and the pre-chamber helps. You know, and not necessarily the fact that it's regulated, just the fact that you've got more air. So yeah, 4 out of 5 for that. And then with regards to noise levels, well, actually the rifle does bark a little bit, so I would recommend putting a moderator on the end. It has got a 1/2 inch UNF there, so it will accommodate most. At the muzzle, when I checked the decibel rating, it was giving us 88 decibels at the muzzle, and 2 meters away from the muzzle I recorded 81 decibels. So it was scored between 3 and 3.5 out of 5 stars for loudness. Now, considering that the shroud has some moderation incorporated within it, this is actually kicking out more noise than the HW77K, which isn't moderated at all. Interesting. Finally, value for money. Well, when I look at my figures and I think about value for money, I think about what I'm, you know, why am I buying the rifle? What's it going to achieve? You know, and is it going to perform for me? So obviously cost is a big factor, and when you look at setting yourself up with a rifle first time, you know, you have to, if it's PCP, you've got to consider the air supply. So whether that's going to be a diver's bottle, whether that's going to be a compressor or a pump, you're going to spend money, because without it you can't fill your rifle up. And then you're looking at, you know, other accessories like a bipod, in this case a scope, because it hasn't got open sights. So all in all, although this rifle as a bare rifle without the scope, without the bipod, retails at around about £715, you need to think about putting maybe another £400 or more on top of that to be able to set yourself up and go out and shoot, if you haven't already got those bits and pieces. So yeah, put that into the calculator, and then take into account its accuracy scores and how it's performed. You know, my formula is kicking out a figure of 3.4 out of 5 stars, and I think that's fair. It really is. So there you are, guys. That's my summing up of this rifle. I suppose question is, would I buy it for myself? Simple answer is, personally, I wouldn't. It's not, whether it doesn't fit me properly, whether it's just a personal thing, you know, rifles are very personal. They need to fit right, they need to shoulder right, you need to feel comfortable behind it, and you need to be confident that it shoots accurately. I haven't, you know, I don't have that confidence in this rifle, so no, personally I wouldn't buy it. If it was given to me, would I persevere with it? I think I'd give it a go, but I would have other go-to rifles, if you know what I mean. I think I'd enjoy shooting them more than this, and it's a shame. It's a shame because it does have good features. You know, there are things about it that I do like, but at the end of the day, for me, it's all about where that pellet lands on a piece of paper, and this is just not consistent, not reliable enough for me, and I think maybe that knocks my confidence, you know, when I shoot it. So there you are, guys. Hope you enjoyed part 2. And if you haven't seen part 1, please take the time to look at it. It's got a lot of information there. Again, all of these opinions, they are my opinions, okay? You may have a completely different experience with your rifle. I've already had comments on part 1 where guys have said, you know, they haven't got any issues with their Ixias at all and they're very happy with them. You know, that's fantastic. Now, they didn't tell me whether that was full power or sub 12 foot-pound that they've got. I would hope if it was full power, then maybe these adjustments to the rear of the rifle play more of a part. You know, they're more reliable, and you can tell the difference when you're shooting out at distances of 100 meters plus. I don't know, I've not shot a full power version of this. And as always, guys, you know, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. It's always helps to get those figures up. Give us a thumbs up if you've liked what you've seen, and of course share with your friends and family. And until the next one, bye for now.